You searched for truth. You chased awakening. And then something shifted. You saw through the illusion, pierced the veil, and touched something vast and silent. But now, you feel empty, unmotivated, disconnected from the very life you thought enlightenment would illuminate. Why? Why does awakening feel like losing your spark instead of igniting it? If you re-feeling this strange inner fog, this quiet resignation, you're not broken. You're on the verge of something deeper, something sacred. Let me explain. At some point during your spiritual evolution, perhaps following a profound realization or personal crisis, you experienced an internal shift. The veil lifted, revealing life, its patterns, noise, and then a profound silence. Initially, this revelation felt liberating, even powerful, but gradually, almost imperceptibly, that sense of purpose faded away. Not dramatically or suddenly, but softly, as if your inner self had gradually turned down life's volume knob and forgotten to restore it. You stopped pursuing things, stopped investing emotionally, not recklessly, but with a quiet, existential resignation. A question began to echo more persistently. Why do I feel so empty now that I've finally glimpsed the truth? This creates a curious contradiction. Most expect spiritual awakening to fuel their passion. Yet for many thoughtful individuals, particularly empaths, deep thinkers, and seekers, it produces the opposite effect. It leaves them feeling hollow. I recall a conversation with an intellectually sharp, spiritually connected friend who devoured the classics, Tal, Watts, Krishnamurti. Following an intense awakening after her darkest spiritual night, she achieved the breakthrough she sought. She described seeing beyond the illusions of identity, ego, and external achievement. Yet within weeks, she found herself staring blankly at her ceiling, struggling to find motivation to start her day. Before, she confessed, I would weep over not accomplishing enough. Now I am indifferent about accomplishing anything. I thought awakening would energize me, not leave me in this state. Jung, the pioneer of analytical psychology, foresaw this post-awakening haze decades ago. Though he avoided trendy spiritual terminology, he comprehended what happens when unconscious elements rise to consciousness. As Jung expressed it, enlightenment doesn't arrive through visualizing figures of light, but by bringing darkness into consciousness. This sounds profound until you grasp its implications. Awakening ISN to the conclusion, it's the beginning of a psychological death, dissolving your former self-concept. The frameworks that previously gave meaning to your existence, careers, relationships, goals, even your perception of time, all begin to disintegrate. But here, it's what Jung would emphasize, your ego hasn't vanished. It is disoriented, having lost its reference points. Without new direction, motivation dissolves. You not experiencing depression or lost drive in the conventional sense. You suspended between realities, having awakened from one state but not yet fully emerged into another. Here is the fascinating and widely misunderstood aspect. What you experiencing ISN, failure, clinical depression, or anxiety, it is something ancient and sacred. Jung cautioned that contemporary society avoids this phase at all costs. This sacred pause, this emptiness, this transitional space. He believed it was crucial for genuine individuation, becoming your authentic self, though nobody prepares you for this stage, do they? That is precisely what we explore next, the actual psychological processes occurring after awakening, and how this apparent loss of motivation might actually represent the most significant spiritual advancement you ever experienced, if properly understood. Before continuing, if you value expanding your awareness and exploring life's deeper dimensions, please subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. This channel aims to illuminate the invisible and support those navigating the unusual and challenging awakening journey. So if they've been drifting in that post-awakening fog, wondering where your enthusiasm disappeared to, no, you're not losing your mind. You undergoing a psychological transformation most people cannot identify. A change so fundamental it doesn't merely adjust your thinking, it rewrites your internal operating system. All those former ambitions, checklists, long-term plans, and productivity motivations no longer resonate. Not because you're failing, but because your entire motivation structure is transforming. And Carl Jung anticipated this long before it became a popular social media discussion topic. Let us examine this further. Throughout most of your life, your drive came from your ego identity, that sense of me you believed yourself to be. You wanted recognition, visibility, achievement, and affection. This isn't negative. It is simply how human development naturally unfolds. Jung described this as the persona, our social mask we use to navigate society. But awakening strips away this mask. Suddenly, seeking approval or winning life as competitions loses importance because you see through the game itself. And that is where things get confusing. Without your mask, your previous ambitions no longer fit. They were designed for a version of yourself that has dissolved. You read like an actor who has stepped off the stage and can't remember their role anymore. This explains your lack of motivation. Your drive hasn't disappeared. They've simply outgrown what once fueled it. Jung believed humans aren't meant to serve the ego but to incorporate it into something greater. He called this process individuation, evolving from a fragmented identity into a complete, unified self. Not the limited self-craving validation, but your transcendent core, your soul-level center that connects with everything. This authentic self isn't concerned with status, approval, or even clarity. It exists to express truth. Once awakening occurs, your inner world begins recalibrating. It starts rejecting anything inauthentic, forced, or ego-driven. This includes career paths, personal connections, aspirations, even that vision board you carefully created back in 2021. That is why people often describe awakening as simultaneously liberating and disorienting. However, Jung cautioned against stopping at this point, as we risk getting stuck. Some who awaken fall into spiritual bypassing, convincing themselves nothing matters since everything is illusion. They disconnect, drift, and numb themselves. They mistake true detachment for complete disengagement. But your authentic self seeks something different. It wants expression through you. It wants to manifest higher consciousness through your physical existence. It doesn't reject worldly experience. It redefines your purpose within it. To embrace this, you must navigate through an unusual intermediate phase that Jung perfectly described, yet few recognize while experiencing it. There is a stage following awakening that rarely gets discussed. It's not glamorous or attention-grabbing. It won't generate thousands of social media likes. It doesn't look like meditating in exotic locations or crafting profound inspirational quotes. Instead, it looks like this: sitting quietly, unable to articulate your experience, while the world continues rushing past you. Jung would say you aren't too lost. You are in transition. You've disconnected from ego identification but haven't yet discovered how to live authentically from your deeper self. This space isn't failure. It is a necessary rite of passage. But in our productivity-obsessed culture, stillness gets misinterpreted as laziness. Taking pause gets confused with paralysis. So you criticize yourself, and that self-judgment blocks the very energy your soul is attempting to reclaim. Jung had a specific term for this psychological pause period. Jung named this process enantiodromia, the phenomenon where things transform into their opposite. When awakening occurs, your internal pendulum swings dramatically from ego-centered striving to soul-level stillness. You shift from, I must accomplish everything, to, why accomplish anything at all? This swing isn't something to fear. It is sacred, a natural restoration of balance. In ancient traditions and mythological frameworks, this represents the hermit phase, the necessary death before rebirth. It's comparable to that mysterious moment when a caterpillar transforms into liquid inside its cocoon. Not yet a butterfly, no longer a crawling creature, just formless substance. And yes, this fluid state doesn't complete tasks or maintain productivity. It simply dissolves. This is precisely when the ego becomes alarmed. It craves action, identity, and clear direction. But your deeper self whispers, release control. I am constructing something more profound. This is where many contemporary spiritual teachings gloss over the challenging aspects. They promote simplistic ideas like just follow your bliss or maintain positive vibrations only. While intentions and energy do matter, Jung would caution that attempting to bypass darkness means missing the treasure. Jung maintained that shadow integration, confronting the suppressed, uncomfortable aspects of yourself, isn't optional or additional work but essential for becoming complete. It is the fundamental curriculum of human soul development. This meaningful emptiness you re-experiencing creates space for unconscious elements to finally surface. You aren't failing, you reprocessing deeply, and your psyche operates with remarkable wisdom. It deliberately suspends your motivation, drive, and even clarity, creating conditions where you must feel, witness, and reclaim what you had previously buried. That was the genuine work. Here comes the beautiful paradox. When you stop fighting against this void, something unexpected begins to happen. Motivation gradually returns, but with a distinctly different quality. It lacks anxiety, performance pressure, or frantic energy. Instead, it emerges as something more primal and serene. A soul-guided movement that feels more like remembering than pursuing. Jung described this as the emergence of the authentic self, not as an abstract concept, but as a living internal guidance system. So you navigated through emptiness. You experienced the silence, stillness, and profound pause. Now something fresh is beginning to awaken within you. Not as dramatic as lightning or as spectacular as fireworks, more like a gentle inner magnetic pull. Not drawing you back towards your previous life, but guiding you to create something entirely new. This is where your authentic self begins communicating, not through explicit words, but through subtle impulses, resonant feelings, and what Carl Jung called the symbolic life. Jung believed that after the ego surrenders and we integrate our unconscious aspects, we develop the capacity to live from a place deeper than personality. At this point, existence transforms from mere survival into a quest for meaning. And surprisingly, this often manifests in wonderfully ordinary ways. When guided by your authentic self, you don't frantically push forward, you simply respond. Fear of missing opportunities no longer drives you. Instead, you follow what feels naturally aligned. You stop desperately seeking clarity and simply recognize it when it naturally emerges. Operating from your true self doesn't guarantee constant motivation as traditionally understood. You will still experience periods of tiredness, uncertainty, and perhaps sorrow. That was part of being human. But what vanishes is that persistent feeling of internal conflict, that sensation of forcing yourself through an ill-fitting life. Instead, you might notice yourself drawn toward creative expression, even without an audience. You decline opportunities that don't resonate internally, regardless of how impressive they appear externally. You begin following natural curiosity rather than rigid checklists. Inner peace becomes more valuable than outward performance. This represents your new fuel source, not adrenaline, but alignment. Jung described this as symbolic living, not in fantasy but with soul connection, where you learn to trust your internal imagery, dreams, meaningful coincidences, and intuitive responses as guidance. How does this manifest in everyday experience? Sometimes it's as straightforward as changing your questions. Instead of, "What should I accomplish?" ask, "What is quietly calling to me?" Replace, "What is the strategic plan?" with, "Where's life gently directing me?" Rather than, "How can I demonstrate my worth?" ask, "What feels genuinely truthful?" You start participating harmoniously with life rather than attempting to control it. This doesn't mean abandoning ambition. It means transforming it. Ambition evolves into dedication to authenticity, presence, and personal expansion. Ironically, this mindset accomplishes tasks far more effectively than ego-driven approaches ever could. Plus, it is sustainable, powered by your spiritual essence. This represents motivation from your authentic self, not to impress others, but to express truth. It frequently leads you toward creating, serving, healing, teaching, and building. Not from obligation, but because your entire being responds with affirmation. So if you felt your inner spark diminishing after awakening, understand that the old fire needed to burn out so you could discover a deeper flame, one that remains steady despite external circumstances. Jung never promised an effortless journey. If you rereading this now, you are already traveling this path. The goal isn't recovering your former motivation, but discovering a new driving force rooted in completeness rather than performance pressure. This ISN to your awakening is conclusion. It is the beginning of your authentic becoming. If you journey through awakening and the subsequent void, you experience something profound that few fully understand. This path ISN linear. It is a spiral, continuously bringing you back to core truths with deeper understanding each time. The emptiness after awakening ISN to the end of your story. It is a necessary clearing, making space for authentic living. Many spiritual seekers get stuck here, either clinging to the high of initial awakening or becoming trapped in the void that follows. But as Jung recognized, this journey continues far beyond both experiences. What awaits beyond the void is not perfection or perpetual bliss. It is something more valuable. Integration. You begin weaving your awakened awareness into everyday life. The mundane becomes sacred. Washing dishes, having conversations, solving problems at work, all become opportunities for presence and meaning. This integration phase brings a gentle but persistent form of motivation that feels like being pulled forward rather than pushed. You'll notice synchronicities increasing, as if life is conspiring to guide you. Your dreams become more vivid and meaningful. The symbolic language of your unconscious becomes clearer, offering guidance that no external advisor could provide. There will still be challenges. You'll experience periods of confusion, resistance, and doubt. The difference is that you no longer identify completely with these states. You recognize them as weather patterns moving through your consciousness rather than who you are. Your relationships transform. Some may fall away, while others deepen in ways you couldn't have imagined. You become capable of authentic connection because you no longer projecting your unresolved shadows onto others. You see people as they are, not as extensions of your unmet needs. The ordinary world begins to reveal its extraordinary nature, not through flashy mystical experiences, but through the quiet recognition that everything is simultaneously exactly what it appears to be and infinitely more. The veil between sacred and mundane dissolves. So if you currently navigating this strange territory between awakening and full embodiment, take heart. The emptiness is fertile ground. The silence is pregnant with possibility. Your soul ISN to asleep. It is gathering resources for the next phase of your becoming. Trust the process. Honor the void. And when that quiet, persistent call begins to rise within you, follow it without expectation. It is leading you home to yourself, not the self you thought you were, but the self you've always been beneath the noise. This journey never truly ends. It deepens, it ripens, and with time, it transforms not just how you experience life, but how life experiences itself through you. Now I'm curious, where are you in this journey? Have you experienced the strange emptiness after awakening? Or perhaps you were already feeling those first gentle pulls of authentic motivation? What has been the most challenging part of your spiritual path? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another traveler on this path needs to hear right now. If you found this video useful, please like it and subscribe to the channel. There are more videos on this channel that will help you become a better version of yourself.